They say every ghost town is a graveyard that never got a funeral. A place where time stopped, but something else kept moving, unseen, whispering through the dust. And in the forgotten corners of America, scattered across deserts and forests, there are towns that were never truly abandoned. Towns that breathe when the wind dies. Towns where the dead still remember the living. The story begins in the cracked bones of Rhyolite, Nevada. Once booming with gold and dreams, where men chased fortune and found madness instead. A town built fast and left faster, now filled with hollow houses standing like broken teeth against the sand. At night, travelers say they see flickering lights in the empty bank, shadows moving behind shattered glass, as if the clerks still count invisible money, their souls chained to ledgers that never closed. And if you listen close enough, you can hear the old train whistle echoing through the canyon, even though the tracks rusted away 100 years ago. One wanderer who dared to camp near the ruins said he woke to footsteps circling his tent, steady and heavy, followed by a soft voice whispering, "You shouldn't be here after dark." When he opened his eyes, there was no one. But the sand around his tent was covered in boot prints leading nowhere. Then there's Bodie, California, the most famous ghost town in the West. Once home to guns, gold, and sin, now a frozen photograph of a place cursed by greed. Every building still stands as it did in 1880, untouched yet unnaturally preserved, as if the town refuses to die. Locals whisper about the curse of Bodie, that anyone who takes something from it, even a nail, a rock, a splinter, will suffer misfortune until they return it. The park rangers receive letters every month, packages filled with stolen trinkets and notes begging forgiveness. Written by people who lost jobs, families, or even their sanity after taking a piece of Bodie home. Visitors speak of strange faces reflected in the glass of the old saloon, of children laughing from the schoolhouse when the wind is still, and of sudden cold spots near the graveyard where the miners were buried without names. One ranger claimed he saw a woman in a long white dress standing by the window of a collapsed house, her eyes glowing faint blue, her lips moving silently, as if mouthing prayers to no one. When he looked away for a second and turned back, she was gone. But the next morning, that same window was found open, though nailed shut for decades. Further east, hidden deep within the Appalachian forest, lies Centralia, Pennsylvania. A town still burning beneath the earth, a ghost born from fire, where an underground coal blaze has been raging since 1962. The ground breathes smoke, the air smells of sulfur, and what remains are cracked roads, melted signs, and a handful of houses swallowed by fog and ash. People who visit claim they hear faint screams rising from the cracks, like echoes trapped under the soil. And at night, the smoke glows faint red, pulsing like a heartbeat beneath the town's ruins. A priest who once visited Centralia said he felt something watching from below. Something ancient and hungry, as if the fire was alive, feeding not on coal but on memory. Local legends say the fire started when the town tried to burn trash near the old cemetery, and the flames woke something buried too deep to rest. Something that whispered through the vents at night until the whole town fled. Those who stayed went silent one by one, and their houses were later found empty. Meals still on tables. Radio still on. Voices whispering faintly from static even after the power was cut. Then there's Jerome, Arizona, called the wickedest town in the West. Once filled with miners, brothels, and death. Now filled with ghosts who never stopped working. The old mine tunnels stretch for miles beneath the desert, collapsing slowly like veins closing in a dying body. People say you can still hear the miners hammering in the dark, their tools clinking faintly under the ground. In one of the old hotels, guests wake up to see men covered in dust standing at the foot of their beds. Eyes hollow, faces blank, before vanishing with the smell of sulfur and metal. Hotel workers talk about a woman in black who roams the hallways crying for her child. And if you follow her voice, it leads you to a door that opens to nothing but a drop straight into the mine shaft below. Once, a tourist took a picture of that hallway at midnight. When he developed it, he saw dozens of faces pressed against the walls, watching him. Some say Jerome's curse came from the earth itself, that the mine was dug into sacred native ground, and the spirits of the disturbed dead still rise to reclaim what was stolen. But perhaps the most cursed of them all is Cahaba, Alabama, the first capital of the state. Now nothing more than ruins swallowed by vines and river fog. Locals call it the city of ghosts, because every path leads to silence, and every silence hides a voice. Travelers often report hearing horse-drawn carriages clattering down the empty dirt roads, though no wheels ever touch the ground. One family who moved into the old plantation house near the river lasted only 2 nights. They said they heard laughter and music at midnight, followed by knocking from inside the walls. When they tried to leave, their car wouldn't start, and the daughter screamed that she saw faces pressed against the windows from the outside, eyes white and glowing. They left everything behind, and when investigators entered the house later, they found muddy footprints leading in circles through every room, ending at a locked mirror where handprints were pressed from the inside. The sheriff refused to go back after dark, saying, "That house breathes when no one's inside." Far north in Kennecott, Alaska, where snow buries the old copper mill, the ghosts whisper differently. Not through fire or mirrors, but through cold, through silence. Travelers who camp nearby say they hear typewriters clicking from the abandoned office at night, as if the clerks are still writing reports for a company that went bankrupt a century ago. One explorer said he found boot tracks leading from the mill to the edge of a cliff, ending abruptly, with no body below. That night he dreamed of men standing outside his tent, faces pale, lips frozen blue, whispering, "We're still working." Some say the curse of these ghost towns isn't in their ground or their history, but in the human need to forget. Because every time a town dies, something stays behind, waiting for someone to remember, to look, to speak its name. When you stand in the middle of these ruins, the air feels heavier, like breath on your neck. And sometimes you hear it, the faint laughter of the dead, the sound of a door closing somewhere behind you, even though the buildings have no doors left to close. These towns are America's wounds. Left open, bleeding stories that no one dares to heal. Places where the line between the living and the dead blurred long ago. They remind us that ghosts don't always haunt people. Sometimes, they haunt places that once held too much life, too much sorrow, too much unfinished business. And as the wind moves through the broken windows and empty streets, you can almost feel them walking beside you, unseen, forgotten, whispering, "We're still here." So if you ever find yourself driving through the desert or deep into the woods and see a sign for a town that isn't on any map, don't stop. Don't take pictures. Don't step beyond the cracked road. Because the moment you do, the town will see you. The air will change, and the voices will begin to follow, calling you by name, asking you to stay. Because every ghost town is waiting for one thing, a new soul to remember its story, and maybe to join it.